Welcome back to Family Twist. This is the second part of our interview with Lori Evans Ermi, author of Adoption Songs, a truly remarkable book. In this episode, Kendall and Lori share stories about how wonderful their adoption experience was growing up, but yet how the trauma can sometimes start to trickle in unexpectedly. Lori even experienced some physical manifestations of her adoption trauma and that primal wound. Let's listen in.
I did not have a baby wipe in the house. I had nothing. We go to Babies R Us, and I'm like deer in the headlights. The woman's like, "Oh, can we help you?" And I'm like, "I don't think so. I need more help than anyone could possibly give. Car seats and all the basics." But yeah, and she's absolutely amazing. I hope you get to meet her someday. She's just so fun. Beth Stuyvesant has invited both of us on her podcast, so hopefully Joey's going to be on there too.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you are well aware now of being part of the community, that everybody's got their thoughts and beliefs about adoption and the whole constellation and trauma and things like that. But it sure sounds like this was the right decision for you.
Yeah. Honestly, nobody believes this story, but every inch of it is absolutely factual.
It's amazing to me. I had such a wonderful experience with my adoptive family that it's hard to think of anybody else as my immediate family. And so I never want to discredit the people that I've found, but I also want to give equal credit to my adoptive family. They were just wonderful people. And to your point, they had tried so long to have babies and weren't able to. And they were just really ready to give a child a home. My mother was like you just described it yourself, where she was like, I don't want to plan too much. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to happen and we're going to get the baby that we're supposed to get. And I appreciated that approach when she explained it to me, because I felt like I landed where I was going to land, and they took chances. I was premature and had some health concerns, and they just rolled with the punches and said, this is our kid. We're going to take care of him. It was wonderful.
I love the way that you talk about in your original podcast. And I think we're really lucky, Kendall. Clearly, we all know that is not the situation for many adoptees who you've got to empathize with their reality, which is, I think, very different than what we experienced. And if it were all like the way that you and I were raised, despite the deaths and the loss, but the love was there. My story is my parents adored me. I didn't find out till I was 8. That's borderline late discovery is what I'm now finding out. But it was absolutely a dead stop in my trajectory finding that out at that point in time. But I'm a confident woman because of how loved I was. I absolutely have no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
But I found out about biological family, which that's the other thing. Is it birth first, biological? Because I always just refer to it as biological forever and ever until you learn that many people have different terminology for that. The birth father never knew I was around. And to be honest, I've been told by people I did get into reunion with that was probably good that he didn't know. Don't know about anything about my birth mother really, except for some non-identifiable information. We did get linked on Ancestry. I reached out to her, thanked her, gave her all information to be like, I'm not a stalker. I'm not looking for anything. If you want to connect, that's great. If not, I respect you. And she was baby scoop era, so I'm sure it was traumatic. From what I do know, she was LDS. I was born in Salt Lake City, and I was given up in Catholic charity, so I'm sure she was hidden away from her ward. Yeah, and I'm sure it was just traumatizing. In fact, in the track Fire and Rain and in the book, Chris, who tells his story, his birth mom was also adopted. And I did end up getting to speak with her. In fact, I met her when I was out in California because that's where she is. And she's going to be in Adoption Songs too. So we're excited about that. She just tells about the shame and all the stuff's that's in the girls that went away and what they had to go through, and talk about trauma. I'm like, I don't have any ill will to my birth mother for not being able to connect with me. I can't even imagine what she had to do to just move on, to live on and overcome that shame. So if she couldn't relive all that, I understand. So I'm not bitter in any way.
Yeah, I think Kendall and I think it's fair to say we're kind of naive about the entire adoption constellation before we got into this podcast, because of just, I feel like I've gotten to know his parents just through the stories and photos and things like that. And even though you both had wonderful upbringings, then we certainly weren't anticipating the trauma that comes with reunion and discovery. That's where the trauma has been for Kendall over the last 7 years, because it's an ongoing thing. It's not resolved. And I imagine you've had some of the same feelings, Lori.
Yes, as did, many people who I did interview who did go into reunion, and just that one of the chapters they talk about just being so angry at their mother. It's like, why didn't you keep me, and you've got 2 other kids, and why was I with that's so much to wrestle with. And when you don't have the answers, and Kendall, I know you can appreciate this, how tired are we of going to the doctor? Oh, so what's your medical history? I don't know, I'm adopted. And I'm finding this with my daughter too, as she's growing up. Fortunately, I think 23andMe was very helpful, because they've got those 84 disease states. At least you can see if you've got some genetic predisposition. So that was helpful. I do think there's a lot more available to the younger adoptees now, which is probably why they're angry, because we didn't have a lot of information.
You didn't.
I mean, you didn't talk about it. I love, though, that when you talk about that, you knew people that were adopted and it wasn't a big deal. You lived in a small town. Everybody knew. No one knew with me. The day they told me, the next day we went to church, and I'm like, can people tell? Do I look different? Nobody knew, because we had just moved there a couple of years earlier. So we were brand new to the area. And I didn't tell a soul till I was 16. I was totally embarrassed. I had shame. No one should have to feel like that. I mean, it wasn't our fault.
We were just the cute babies.
Right. And then, then to be going through your formative years and puberty and things like that with that, those years are tough enough.
Yes. And I didn't realize it, but I had some physical manifestations of like welts that were all stress induced that I didn't know until years later when I started reading. And also gastrointestinal. So I've had diverticulosis probably since high school, but didn't know. When I was a track runner, and something I'd be like buckled over, and some of the meaner girls would be like, oh, you just don't want to have to do that race. I'm like, I can't, I'm in such pain right now. But then a day or so later it'd go away, and then I wouldn't have it for a year. So I'd forget for decades till you turn 50 and you get that lovely colonoscopy, and they're like, oh, you have severe diverticulosis. And I looked at the picture of by the grace of whoever, I don't have a lot of flare-ups, and I've never had to go to the hospital like some people I know. But that is absolutely, I know, is part of adoption trauma, because that's a very common manifestation.
You just made me, when you were starting that story, it made me think of my adoptive father, because what few times people would be rude to me in junior high or whatever, my dad was the guy that would say, your parents got stuck with you. We chose this little boy. And he did it in a comical way, but he meant it. He was like, we love this kid.
Clear advocate.
He was just the best advocate that you could have. It was his way of saying, F you and go away. When I think about that, and I just, how much fortitude that took, right? To be that guy. He was just like, shut up. My kid's my kid, and he's the only one I have, and we love him. I have so much to look back on and be proud of.
obvious that it's deep in your soul because that story is just so accessible for you. And that's just a part of who you are and how beautiful that is.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, Lori, as you were talking about discovering at age 8, I'm curious, how and when did you decide to tell your daughter?
I have a picture of her birth mother handing her to me. So I made a little birth book for her and we were going through it. And I know her name. And yeah, and your birth mom named you. We kept her first name as her middle name. I know information when she's ready to want to go and explore. I can help her. So yeah, I learned big time.
Yeah.
Nope, this is not going to be a big surprise.
No stigma, right? Just
Absolutely.
no stigma.
And we were like the cool adopted girls.
Oh.
And this was before I even knew that adoptees are big, bad, and broken. So
Has she expressed any interest in reunion?
she knows that whenever she's ready, I can help her. I won't get into a lot of the specifics, but I could find her. There's some specific things that I know and I have that will make that easy. And she's starting to prepare for that a little bit. There's the birth mom had some challenges.
Yeah.
She's deaf. And so she's starting to want to learn sign language, I'm noticing now.
Okay.
She wants to go to RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, and they have a big ASL program there, and she wants to learn that. And I'm like, she's getting ready. So I love that.
No kidding.
Very cool.
What a wonderful thing.
What we know about her birth mom is she is from the Mapuche tribe. So she's indigenous from South America, the Chilean and Argentinian ranges. And so I probably could have done, I know I could have done a much better job of celebrating that heritage. We did some things and I did what I could, but I wasn't. In retrospect now, I wished I had celebrated that more, but it's not an easy tribe to find here in the US. I tried the Chilean consulate and nobody wants to talk to me. Birth father, we don't know. My guess is it's not a great story. A first cousin popped up who was my age. So I'm like, oh, so we think this birth father is much older than her birth mother and probably may not have been a good story. And I don't think mine was a good story either. So we aren't needing to pursue that.
Yeah,
sure.
Whatever's healthy, right?
Yeah, exactly. For Kendall, my whole push was like, him being an only child, I'm like, there's a great chance if these were young people that you've got siblings out there. And me growing up with a brother and a sister and being as close as we are, I'm like, I want that for you, which we have now, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a half sister who I was in reunion with for about 5 years. But when I was going through my divorce and whatnot, she wasn't able to remain in reunion with me. So she took herself out. I've got 2 half brothers who want nothing to do with me, which is fine. So
Okay.
I'm connected to 5 of my 6. I'm not as connected to my mother's side as my father's side, which makes me sad because of my nieces and nephews.
How'd you feel when you first saw someone that looked like you?
It was amazing. Like my birth father's younger brother, there's a photo in our dining room of him and me, and it's just shocking, isn't it, Corey? Like like I joked with my Uncle Sean. I was like, how well did you know my mother? You know what I mean? As if he were my father. I was like, we look amazingly alike. More than his 3 children look like him.
Yeah.
I look like him. It's amazing.
It's a DNA, isn't it?
It's funny that you ask that because I think it's still a challenge for Kendall to see it. And so he'll still ask me like, do I look like Stephanie? Do I look like Chris? I'm like, dude.
Yes. Well, even Monica, when I stand back from the photo, I'm like, of course I look like Monica, my sister. But it's almost surreal, right?
Yeah.
Because I was 47 years old before I found these people. So I had just created this persona for myself where I didn't look like anybody, and that was okay. But it really wasn't okay. Like you have that desire.
Yes, I do.
Right?
Yeah.
You have that deep desire to look like somebody.
Yeah. And at one point I was trying to think if I had children of my own, then I'd have that. But that wasn't meant to be for me in this life, and that's all
Yep.
right.
And that's where we are. We don't have biological children.
But yeah, I saw that resemblance immediately when his brother and sister-in-law and the 3 kids met us at the airport in Boston. I'm like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah. I look at their youngest son, and he would not want to acknowledge this, but he and I look just like him when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
It's bizarre to me.
And I do think that that's where we can help in the work that you're all doing, and hopefully the work that I'll continue to be able to do, is adoptees have those missing pieces, and even just talking it out. And if they do go into reunion, and part of my story, You Can't Always Get What You Want, was the title of my ancestry DNA reunion story, because I really was excited to have family and a sister, and I had romanticized about it all, yet I was very cautious because I tend to be skeptical anyway, probably because of adoption trauma.
Yeah.
But just be careful. A lot of people are diving in. They can't wait. No, it's going to just be roses, and it can be. And I hope it is for people, because it's a lovely, beautiful thing, as you found with some of your family. But it also, and my dad, I didn't tell him right away because he was getting older and he was starting to get a little dementia. Adoptees in our era didn't want to hurt our dad or hurt our parents about it. But I did. I said, yeah, Dad, I found a sister. And he said, and he looked at me. It was one of those intense things, almost the same thing as when he said, I hope you find your girl and that she grows up to be just like you. And he looked at me, he goes, don't get hurt. And that man was an intuitive guy and empathetic as could be. And sure enough,
I mean, look, it's everybody's going to go about it a different way. One of the chapters of Kendall's book is going to have to be like the do's and don'ts of a reunion, because he did all the don'ts.
Yep. Every one of them. But I don't regret it.
I joined him on some of them. The first one, I'm so glad you made this discovery, but let's take a breath.
No, I was like, forget that.
Yeah.
I'm 47. I've missed 47 years with these people. They need to know me today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and
but I think we'll always think that it was worth it. The good is definitely much more good than bad.
100%.
Sadly, we're in the minority as far as liberal as we are with Kendall, both sides of Kendall's family, and which is why we've just learned not to talk politics anymore.
Yeah.
Or religion.
Especially now.
Oh my goodness. And I think maybe people understand that about us, and they just don't bring it up, because I was floored. We went to his nephew's graduation party the day after the Trump assassination attempt. I'm like, oh boy, I don't know.
Hear about this all day.
I didn't hear a peep. I didn't hear anyone's name. I didn't hear Biden. Didn't hear Trump. Didn't hear any of that.
I was so happy
because like there was one Super Bowl Sunday. Kendall and his brother might have had just a wee too much to drink, and it just wouldn't stop. Come on, you guys are not going to change each other's minds when you've been drinking and whatever. We don't get into that. When we get together with them, you can see the joy on both of their faces.
Oh yeah,
that it's just the honeymoon has never ended as far as that goes.
Chris loves me and I love him, and we're very different people. To your point, I have always been, I wouldn't even call it an optimist. I'm going to call it delusional, because I talk about romanticizing things. I was like, I'm going to meet them. Everybody's going to love me. I'm going to love them. It's going to be a kumbaya.
I love you. What's that?
Overwhelmingly, that was the response. You're going to have differences with people, right? You're going to have, and I just wasn't thinking that way. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I think because I am so similar to my adoptive parent, like they're not still here, but I'm like not a carbon copy. I'm very similar to them
they were your family,
and just temperament and beliefs and all of that. And I just expected everybody else to fall into line with me, because I'm in charge and everybody's going to like it. And that isn't the way life happens.
No, and I'm certainly not the shrinking violet brother-in-law. I feel like we were a package deal. So when he got new family, I got new family. And so I'm pretty bold, but I do have a tiny little confession to make. And I'm not sure when this episode is going to air, but let's just say last week in the group text that we have going with Kendall's brother and sister-in-law, I did say, let's go Kamala. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Where's the pearls?
I was giddy. Let's just put it that
Yeah.
way. But yeah, we try not to throw our stuff.
It was a big day.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we try not to throw our stuff in people's faces because, we've got friends and family on both sides on all the different walks and stuff. And so they know where we stand.
I think the end of that is you have to be respectful, right? We might agree to disagree, but we still love each other.
And I think, we're obviously we stand where we stand, but we're also very open-minded. And I'm a big believer in we're always learning and evolving. And it was a surprise to me when I was on the panel at Summit that everybody else in the panel had received a backlash on social media from people about adoption. And we haven't gotten one negative comment. And I hope that continues because I feel like we're willing to listen, understand, respect everyone's beliefs and opinions. And we don't know everything. Like, we're learning new stuff every day. So yeah, that's where we come from. Our big thing is community and education.
Same. Yep. If I only sell 100 books, I'm grateful that someone's perspective has shifted or there's some new insight that maybe they didn't have that they can go and reach out to an adoptee. I saw a meme that said, nobody ever asked an adoptee what it was like to be an adoptee. And it's true. Nobody was like, oh, what was it like? But reach out. How are you? You okay?
Yeah.
Even if we just did that a little bit more than we do now, that could change everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. We need to be recognized, right? We need to be seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing with woke and everything that people are like, oh no, here's another group of people that have been traumatized, but it is real. And we were silenced and had no information forever. And now we have information. And I respect these millennials and Gen Zs that are out there doing really groundbreaking, influencing work. Their content's powerful. I'm not an angry adoptee, so that's not my audience, but I understand why they are. Yep. I also want to be able to help because I do believe that reform is probably necessary. And I think because I'm the age I'm at and I have the experiences, maybe I can influence people in a more subtle way or where I can have a voice and an audience that can hear it because I'm not in everybody's face mad. But there's a place for the angry adoptee. It's unfair.
Yeah.
I've had people on my TikTok posts just be like, I was abused by my birth father for 15 years. Those are horrible stories that are happening everywhere. But adoptees are not treated well all the time.
Absolutely.
For sure. And I think we're to continue to experience some gray area between Family Twist and our upcoming podcast, Horror Heals, because the idea of horror movies being good for our mental wellness, some people are going to find that absolutely crazy because they're probably not horror movie fans. But since we announced that concept, we've just been hearing from so many people like, yes, we need this. And I'm sure there's going to be some crossover because I'm sure there's going to be some adoptees and donor conceived people that have these same experiences. And kudos to people being able to talk about their trauma on both podcasts, just in an effort to help people. Because it's like the communities are growing, but there's still a lot of the information has not gone fully mainstream yet. I'm so glad to hear you say you're already working on a sequel. Beautiful, wonderful.
Well, we love your format. I think
it's great.
I think it's clever, but I think it will resonate with so many readers.
It's easy, right? Connect with music. Yeah, I'm actually doing I'm trying to do some book events kind of thing. So I've got one coming up and they were not adoptees. It was just a coffee, like a book club kind of thing. Bring a song that resonates with you and we're going to make their playlist. This could be fun and light, but then we could still get that message in there in a way that people can accept it and hear it. We're not shoving it down people's throats, but we're just trying to educate like you are all doing. And I love that we all have a slightly different way of doing that so we can reach more people.
Yeah.
I can totally see you doing a presentation at an event like Summit and having people.
Well, I did sign up for the Adoption Knowledge affiliates. They're doing a November virtual one. So fingers crossed that they'll accept my proposal. But yeah, I'm excited to do what I can, especially as, I mean, I was a trainer and an executive coach, so I have behavioral background, you know. I mean, I don't know how that's going to manifest. I'm still learning and meeting people. And I love the work that's being done by Kat Lindquist and others. And I want to support them. But there's what somebody said, there's 4 to 5% of the US population's adopted. So what's that, 17 million or something? I mean, there's plenty of room for all of us. You know?
Exactly.
Well, Lori, I can tell you exactly what we're going to do as soon as we let you go. That we're going to open a bottle of wine. We're going to put on some vinyl, and we're going to figure out what Kendall's adoption song is.
Oh, good. And I invite you, if you want to be in adoption songs too, because I've got a long list of people who don't really want to write a whole book, but they'd love to have a chapter that can tell their story. So
I would love that.
You know, I'd love to have you in the next one.
I would love that.
Excellent. And please thank your daughter for recognizing my fashion sense.
She was so excited. She goes, "Is this the one with Corey?"
I'll end with this, but this is another little crossover thing. So we just booked a photo shoot for the new podcast. And so I'm going to be wearing one of my signature outfits because that's going to be my same style. Because that's how where I started doing that, was going to the horror conventions dressed like that, because it's a good conversation starter. But we had to find a similar outfit for Kendall. Not similar, but something that would complement it. So I think we hit on something pretty good.
I will be stalking you for sure.
Excellent. Lori, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I will let you know when we determine Kendall's adoption song.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. Appreciate you letting me be on your podcast. It was really a pleasure.
Lori, it was a pleasure hosting you on Family Twist. You are so sweet. We had a great time with you, and we're glad to call you friend. And I'll tell you this, we did exactly what we said we were going to do. After we got off the call with you, Lori, we opened a bottle of wine, put on some records, and we determined Kendall's adoption song. So a little backstory, Kendall's adoptive mother was a huge Elvis Presley fan. I think she may have even tossed her underwear on the stage during a performance. I wasn't there, so I can't confirm that. However, we're big Elvis fans here too. And we went back and forth and talked about probably 25 different possible songs for Kendall, but we ended on Love Me Tender, and I think that really exemplifies the relationship Kendall had with his adoptive parents. What's your adoption song? I want to find out. Feel free to reach out to us anytime at familytwistpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on our socials at Family Twist on Instagram. The Family Twist podcast is produced by How the Cow Ate the Cabbage LLC, presented by Savoir Faire Marketing Communications, and features original music from Cosmic Afterthoughts.